August 6, 1945, 8:15 in the morning. The war room beneath Tokyo's Imperial Palace. A fragmented radio message from Hiroshima was about to demolish 3.5 years of carefully maintained fiction. The words crackling through the receiver would force Japan's military commanders to face a reality they had actively avoided since Pearl Harbor. The United States hadn't been deploying its full strength. What Japan had been fighting was American restraint. Deep underground, protected by layers of steel-reinforced concrete, the command center operated with the efficient desperation of men managing an unwinnable situation. Field Marshal Shunrika Hato had transformed the morning briefings into exercises in creative interpretation, acknowledging territorial losses while insisting that Japanese resolve remained unbroken. When Lieutenant Colonel Takashi Yamamoto crashed through the entrance without observing protocol, the breach of military etiquette told everyone something catastrophic had occurred. The communications officer clutched a decoded message, his normally steady hands shaking. The transmission from Hiroshima's military garrison had cut off mid-sentence. Complete urban destruction from singular explosive device. Devastation zone surpasses any recorded attack. Weapon classification unknown. Death toll overwhelming. Urgent assistance. Static. Then nothing. General Yoshijiro Yamizu examined the text repeatedly, searching for alternative interpretations. His initial conclusion seemed more plausible than the literal meaning. American bomber formations must have coordinated the war's most massive incendiary assault, possibly 500 B-29 superfortresses releasing their payloads simultaneously. Any other explanation defied physical laws. Hiroshima housed 350,000 civilians across an urban sprawl covering 27 square miles. Destroying such an area would demand sustained bombardment involving hundreds of aircraft over multiple hours. Yet subsequent communications painted an impossibly different picture. Morning reconnaissance teams reported detecting merely 3 American bombers in Hiroshima's airspace. 3 planes, not 300. 3. Admiral Somu Toyota stood before the strategic wall chart documenting every confirmed American naval and air asset throughout the Pacific theater. His intelligence division had developed extraordinary accuracy in forecasting enemy operations. They understood formation sizes, standard munitions loadouts, typical damage assessments. Nothing from 42 months of aerial warfare suggested 3 aircraft possessed city-obliterating capability. By mid-morning, reconnaissance pilots attempting to survey Hiroshima transmitted descriptions that sounded like fever dreams. They described an enormous fungal-shaped cloud climbing beyond 40,000 feet, visible across 150 miles of landscape. The formation pulsed with chromatic intensities they'd never witnessed, violet and amber shades that seemed luminescent. Foreign Minister Shigenori Togo received the first civilian eyewitness testimony around 11:30 from a railroad supervisor positioned 15 miles from Hiroshima's outskirts. His account, documented by Togo's assistant, spoke of brilliance exceeding 1,000 solar flares, followed by concussive force derailing locomotives. He claimed Hiroshima's downtown district had been eradicated, transformed into a raging inferno observable from distant mountains. The Supreme War Council assembled at 1400 hours in unprecedented quiet. Prime Minister Kantaro Suzuki, who'd survived assassination attempts merely for hinting at negotiation, reviewed the compiled intelligence. Tremors ran through his fingers as he set the papers down. "Gentlemen," Suzuki's voice remained controlled despite his visible distress. "We need to examine what these developments signify." War Minister General Korechika Anami, the chamber's most vocal proponent for total resistance, responded immediately. "Enemy misinformation. They're attempting to convince us of capabilities they lack." Hiroshima suffered conventional bombardment, and this represents psychological warfare too. 3 aircraft, Anami-san. Admiral Toyota's interruption violated every norm of military hierarchy. Radar systems confirmed them. Ground observers verified them. 3. Silence engulfed the room as comprehension settled like radioactive fallout. For 42 months, Japanese strategic doctrine rested on one unwavering principle. American material superiority could be negated through Japanese spiritual supremacy and battlefield ingenuity. The enemy might manufacture more vessels, more aircraft, more armored vehicles, but Japanese warriors would demonstrate such ferocity that American casualty rates would trigger political collapse. This assumption had dictated every major decision since December 7, 1941. When American factories generated 300,000 warplanes, Tokyo's leadership insisted that Japanese aviators, despite numerical disadvantage, fought with tenfold intensity. When American shipbuilding outpaced German submarine warfare, Japan rationalized that enemy sailors lacked genuine warrior mentality. But a solitary munition capable of urban annihilation suggested something fundamentally different. It indicated that American industrial and scientific advancement had achieved levels rendering Japanese opposition not challenging but irrelevant. It revealed that America had pursued secret weapons development while concurrently prosecuting global warfare across two oceans. It demonstrated that every assumption underpinning Japanese military philosophy had become dangerously obsolete. Intelligence Director Colonel Makoto Sato delivered his afternoon evaluation at 1600 hours. His analysts had tracked American production metrics since 1941 with disturbing precision. American tank manufacturing, 88,410 units. Japanese equivalent, 6,450. American carrier construction, 41 capital ships. Japanese output, 15. American merchant marine expansion outpaced German submarine attrition rates across the Atlantic. But Sato's revised assessment suggested something that shattered existing frameworks entirely. Assuming, his words emerged barely audible. Assuming the Americans possess city-destroying munitions, their scientific capabilities transcend comparative analysis. They're not engaging in the conflict we comprehend. Foreign Minister Togo articulated the unspoken collective anxiety, and possessing one such weapon implies inventory of additional units. Japanese understanding of American power had crystallized through assumptions predating Pearl Harbor. These convictions, memorialized in strategic documents and planning sessions, would disintegrate following Hiroshima. November 1941 witnessed Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto delivering the most precise evaluation of American industrial potential any Japanese commander would provide throughout the conflict. His assessment, preserved in naval archives, was unambiguous. I can run wild for 6 months or a year, but I have utterly no confidence for the second or third year. Yamamoto had experienced America directly. Harvard education, Washington diplomatic posting, factory tours revealing industrial infrastructure firsthand. His projections derived from empirical observation, not ideological wishful thinking. American steel output alone exceeded Japan's comprehensive industrial capacity. American petroleum access was effectively infinite compared to Japan's import-dependent vulnerability. Yet Yamamoto's cautions were systematically dismissed by the commanders now assembled underground contemplating Hiroshima's fate. Army strategic planning from 1941, recovered post-war from captured archives, revealed the alternative scenario military leadership embraced. American material advantage would be nullified through 3 mechanisms. Distance. Japanese territorial conquests would establish defensive perimeters so extensive that American logistics would suffocate under geographical strain. Every supply item required 5,000-mile ocean transit before reaching combat zones. Psychology. American culture was individualistic, pleasure-seeking, incapable of absorbing substantial casualties. Doctrine assumed 30,000 to 40,000 American deaths would trigger domestic pressure for negotiated settlement. Combat effectiveness. Japanese forces, through superior conditioning and warrior ethos, would generate casualty exchange rates neutralizing numerical disadvantages. These premises faced testing at every Pacific engagement and failed consistently. Yet High Command reinterpreted defeats as tactical adjustments needed, never fundamental recalibration required. Midway, June 1942, for carriers lost within hours. Official analysis blamed fortune and execution errors, not American code-breaking superiority or carrier doctrine vulnerabilities. Guadalcanal, August 42 through February 43. Japanese forces discovered Americans sustained transoceanic logistics and matched jungle combat prowess. Official verdict blamed insufficient commander determination, not strategic impossibility. By August 45, every core assumption had encountered systematic destruction. Senior leadership never formally acknowledged this reality. August 6th afternoon marked the war's first moment when Supreme War Council examined their delusions directly. Colonel Sato presented his comprehensive reality analysis, documentation his team compiled across 6 months, but were forbidden from presenting until this crisis. The figures were devastating. 1944 American aircraft production alone surpassed Japan's entire war aggregate. American shipyards constructed escort carriers faster than Japan trained replacement pilots. American munitions plants generated weekly shell output exceeding Japanese monthly capacity. Sato's most damaging data involved scientific research infrastructure. Intelligence networks documented American research employing over 130,000 scientists and engineers on military applications. Japan's parallel program, approximately 6,000 personnel. American university research programs, Harvard, MIT, Berkeley, Chicago, individually exceeded Japan's total scientific community. The atomic weapon, Sato explained, demanded construction capabilities beyond our theoretical reach regardless of knowledge. Americans built entire municipalities covertly. Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Hanford, Washington. Los Alamos, New Mexico. These installations consumed electrical power surpassing major Japanese urban centers. They employed 130,000 workers. Manhattan Project expenditure, $2 billion, exceeding Japan's complete 1944 military budget. Foreign Minister Togo posed the question that would haunt war crimes proceedings and historical scholarship. How did we remain ignorant? Sato's response was discomforting yet accurate. We possess knowledge, Foreign Minister. Intelligence services continuously reported American industrial expansion. We intercepted communications regarding massive classified programs. We documented their scientific mobilization. Every report faced dismissal as fabrication or enemy propaganda. We chose ignorance because acknowledgement demanded accepting unwinnable circumstances. Admiral Toyota contributed his bitter conclusion. Americans prosecuted this conflict while deliberately limiting engagement intensity. They battled Germany and Japan simultaneously while developing incomprehensible weaponry. They generated war material exceeding our conceptual limits while sustaining civilian economic activity beyond our peacetime standards. They don't merely possess superior strength. They operate on civilizational levels we cannot access. 11:02, morning of August 9th, a second atomic device obliterated Nagasaki. Nagasaki Regional Command's transmission was briefer than Hiroshima's. Secondary atomic strike. Urban zone destroyed. Casualties catastrophic. Communication ceased. That afternoon's emergency Supreme War Council session descended into territory unprecedented within Japanese military culture. Explicit admission of comprehensive strategic collapse. Navy Minister Admiral Mitsumasa Yanai spoke with frankness unthinkable in that environment. Americans have proven capability to systematically eradicate our cities individually until nothing survives. They've demonstrated capacity for indefinite continuation. We possess no defense against weapons undetectable until detonation. Anti-aircraft systems are obsolete. Fighter interception is impossible against unidentifiable targets. Civil defense preparations are meaningless. Army Chief Yumizu added assessment that weeks earlier would have been condemned as treason. Atomic weaponry transforms fundamental military calculus. Force concentration creates target opportunities. Urban centers become vulnerabilities. Our final resistance strategy assumed Americans required invasion for occupation. But city destruction without ground forces renders our defensive doctrine irrelevant. They can eliminate Japan's existence without territorial incursion. Evening intelligence projections estimated America possessed 3 to 7 additional atomic weapons with ongoing production capability. Even conservative estimates, even assuming one remaining device, produced identical strategic conclusions. Continued resistance meant national suicide. Cabinet Secretary Hizetsune Sakamizu recorded Emperor Hirohito's private reflections from that evening's audience. His Majesty expressed that the unendurable must be endured. The atomic bombs have demonstrated that continued resistance will result in the complete annihilation of the Japanese people. We must accept terms that preserve the nation, even if those terms are painful beyond measure. August 10th brought formal surrender communication through Swiss diplomatic intermediaries. The proposal contained conditions, Potsdam Declaration acceptance contingent on maintaining imperial sovereignty. American response arrived August 12 with calculated ambiguity. Emperor subject to supreme Allied commander authority, ultimate status determined through freely expressed Japanese popular will. This vagueness triggered final crisis. Military hardliners under General Anami rejected terms as unacceptable. They advocated continued resistance regardless of atomic weapons. Their position abandoned victory prospects entirely, focusing instead on preserving honor through destruction rather than accepting foreign occupation and judgment. September 2nd's formal surrender ceremony aboard USS Missouri confronted Japanese delegates with physical manifestation of power they'd consistently underestimated. Foreign Minister Mamoru Shigemitsu, signing surrender documentation, recorded diary impressions. The anchorage contained American warships beyond visual horizon. Hundreds of vessels. Aircraft formations blocked sunlight. Americans displayed power through presence alone, not threats. This fleet represented fractional deployment of total military force, yet exceeded everything Japan possessed at peak strength. General Yashijiro Yamizu, representing Imperial General Staff, noted the ceremony location itself taught lessons about American capability. We surrendered aboard battleship constructed in American facilities requiring less time than single Japanese naval operation planning cycle. Missouri represented one among dozens of capital ships they built while simultaneously fighting transoceanic conflicts and developing atomic weapons. We prepared a decade for war. They prepared 15 months and achieved total victory. American occupation forces arriving late August provided Japanese military observers with details reinforcing their transformed understanding. Equipment, organization, logistics demonstrated capabilities that intelligence reports had accurately described, but high command systematically rejected. Single American infantry divisions deployed more motorized transport than the entire Imperial Army possessed. American supply operations delivered fresh provisions to troops while Japanese forces starved. American medical capabilities treated trauma Japanese military medicine considered beyond intervention. Intelligence Colonel Sato compiled September 1945 final report, Strategic Miscalculation Analysis, Why Defeat Was Inevitable. The document, preserved in Japan's National Institute for Defense Studies, offered unsparing honesty. We lost this conflict December 1941 upon attacking an adversary we fundamentally misunderstood. Subsequent engagements merely demonstrated inevitable mathematical outcomes. American industrial capacity exceeded ours by factors of 10 to 20 across all metrics. Their scientific infrastructure surpassed our total educated population. Their resource base was effectively unlimited while ours depended on unsustainable conquests. We believed spiritual strength could overcome material reality. We were catastrophically mistaken. American Occupation Administration under General MacArthur provided Japanese officials access to war production data confirming worst fears. United States production: 88,410 tanks, 257,000 artillery pieces, 2,434,000 trucks, 17 million rifles, 41 billion ammunition rounds. More staggering, they achieved this while maintaining civilian living standards exceeding Japanese peacetime prosperity. Former Prime Minister Suzuki, in American occupation historian interviews, articulated leadership's final comprehension. We imagined fighting merchant nation valuing profit over honor, comfort over sacrifice. We were devastatingly wrong. We engaged history's most productive civilization, one simultaneously sustaining mass consumer economy and total war production. They didn't choose between domestic prosperity and military output. They generated both in quantities we found incomprehensible. Manhattan Project details, gradually disclosed to Japanese scientists through occupation channels, provided most humbling education. The program employed 130,000 personnel, cost $2 billion, exceeding Japan's entire 1944 military expenditure. It required constructing facilities consuming electrical power surpassing major urban centers. It involved theoretical physics at levels Japanese scientists hadn't conceived possible. The atomic weapon wasn't merely ordnance, but evidence of scientific and industrial sophistication, placing America in different civilizational category. Admiral Toyoda's 1946 assessment for occupation historians captured complete reversal of Japanese military ideology. We initiated conflict believing American democracy constituted weakness. Their diversity created disunity. Their wealth generated softness. We concluded conflict understanding democracy enabled innovation. Diversity provided talent pools. Wealth funded capabilities we couldn't match. Every foundational assumption wasn't merely incorrect, but inversely wrong. By 1947, comprehensive American occupation interviews with former Japanese military leadership revealed complete transformation. General Yamizu's testimony summarized High Command's ultimate comprehension. We failed because we never understood our adversary. We attributed them our limitations, restricted resources, narrow industrial foundations, rigid thinking, when they possessed opposites. We believed our propaganda when intelligence services provided truth. The atomic weapon wasn't defeat's cause, but final proof we'd been defeated from conflict's initiation against an enemy we never genuinely comprehended. We learned belatedly that courage cannot overcome chemistry. Spirit cannot defeat steel. Determination means nothing confronting an adversary possessing both determination and tenfold capacity for material manifestation. Japan's realization story serves as cautionary narrative about ideological blindness in warfare. Japanese military leadership accessed accurate American capability intelligence throughout the conflict. They chose dismissal because accepting truth demanded abandoning cherished beliefs about racial superiority, spiritual power, and modern warfare's nature. Atomic weapons didn't alter fundamental strategic reality. They merely rendered that reality impossible to further ignore. American dominance existed from December 7, 1941 forward. Japan required 3 years, 8 months, and 2 atomic detonations to finally understand what Admiral Yamamoto warned about before hostilities commenced. The world's most formidable military forces aren't built on courage or spirit, but industrial capacity, scientific innovation, and willingness to perceive reality clearly rather than through ideological distortion. Japan learned this at millions of lives cost. The question for subsequent generations remains whether this lesson endures when future conflicts tempt nations believing willpower alone can overcome crushing material disadvantage.